Hello everyone, welcome to this presentation. My name is Alejandro Marin and today we're going to talk about a topic that is embedded in the area of bilingual education. This is heritage Spanish speakers. In 2013, I conducted a research which concentrated on the continuum that represents the term heritage Spanish speakers, generally and specifically in the context of Worthington, Ohio public schools. Heritage Spanish speakers has appeared in journals due to a societal focus on globalization, bilingualism, and the teaching of foreign languages. However, there is still confusion with the definition of the term. For example, there is not a fixed definition of it. There are difficulties in identifying heritage Spanish speakers in the classroom, and there are inconsistencies or inappropriate ways to address their academic needs. States like California, Texas, Illinois, Florida, and New York comprise the 70% of Hispanic population in the United States. Ohio only comprises 1.9% of this population. The situation of heritage Spanish speakers in the United States is complex due to the variation of people that brings their respective cultures from their countries of origin. The contact of this variation of the Spanish languages and the English variation throughout all the countries results in new forms of Spanish. The fact that there is a lack of understanding of what multiple competence entails makes it not possible to help heritage Spanish speakers at school. For example, teachers have encouraged students to speak English at home rather than using Spanish in order to improve their English skills. However, some studies have shown that the development of one language does not impede the development of the other, and that this strategy might be ineffective. The effects of disregarding Spanish are numerous. For example, the suppression of aspects of an individual identity or the loss of linguistic resource. Few institutions possess placement techniques to situate heritage Spanish speakers in appropriate courses, and most of those classes are intended for English monolinguals, despite that there are around 3 million of Hispanic speakers in the United States. These programs usually focus on reading and writing, while the heritage Spanish speakers exhibit better verbal skills. Hence, there is a need for reliable techniques to really address heritage Spanish speakers' needs. Another shortcoming is that these programs force heritage Spanish speakers to use basic vocabulary than the one they may probably be using at home. This may lead them to feel embarrassed because their variety can be corrected for a preferred or a standard one. Sometimes the explanations of grammatical rules that these students already know can cause confusion, and apart from that, teachers and students might feel intimidated because of the advanced skills of these heritage Spanish speakers. In some of the cases, the variation of the language can be misinterpreted and considered as an erroneous one. And then this can affect students' motivation because the link we have between the language and our identity and our community. Without a specific placement test, this can lead students to feel uncomfortable or boring in these classes because there are some features that they already know. In 1980, teaching Spanish to Hispanic bilinguals was restricted to newcomers who use Spanish in their home countries or their communities. Nowadays, in the context of the United States, heritage Spanish speaker is an individual who speaks Spanish at any level. And as they learn the language at home in an informal setting, they show some specific features. For example, they write the same way they speak. For example, they can write ¿Cómo estás? Instead of saying ¿Cómo estás? Also, they can display an unawareness of the accentuation of the Spanish language. The pronunciation differences between Spanish and English in some sounds. For example, the differences between ba and va, da and ta, or ha and ha. That follows to spelling complications. Sometimes the use of double consonants, for example in communication, or the capitalization rules. For example, in Spanish we do not capitalize days of the weeks, while in English we do that. As previously mentioned, the contact of Spanish and speaker can lead to different types of variation of the language. For example, code switching, when heritage Spanish speakers express sentences like I'm tired, me voy a la cama. Even though code switching can be seen as a deficit in an individual language production, this linguistic strategy is more complex. It can show a profound understanding of codes of both languages, in this case Spanish and English, and also demonstrate discursive and pragmatic functions. Another factor that can be present in heritage Spanish speakers is the mood simplification. For example, they usually replace the subjunctive mood for the indicative mood of Spanish. The communicative contexts where they use the subjunctives are normally those of volition. For example, when they express sentences like para que o querer que. Quiero que sea o para que veas. So these difficulties yields in the tense and the morphology. Sometimes both tense and morphologies are as absent in heritage Spanish speakers' speech. Some authors have argued whether the extinction of heritage Spanish speaker students might attribute it to language attrition or incomplete acquisition. This can lead to misclassify heritage Spanish speakers as linguistically damaged, impacting their experiences in the classroom. Teachers completed a survey which included three different components. Number one, the definition of heritage Spanish speaker, which concentrated in the presence of essence of the implementation in the school. Number two, focus and included their opinions about the influence of heritage Spanish speakers in their Spanish classes in relation to the atmosphere and their relationship with their peers. And number three, teachers were asked if they or how they cater for these students' needs. First question, three of the Spanish teachers hadn't heard about the concept before. 85%, which is 17 teachers, did recognize the term. They expressed they heard the concept in different contexts, like in the university, in conferences, public professional publications, textbooks, and from colleagues. A third result showed that, in general, from 27 Spanish teachers, which represent the 100% of teachers in all the schools in the Washington district, 74% of them have heard about the concept of heritage Spanish speakers. The third question, the majority of the teachers consider their Spanish classes appropriate or somewhat easy for 77% of their heritage Spanish speakers. These students seem to have no inconvenience with the class. Those teachers who consider these courses somewhat advanced or difficult show that their students seem to have some difficulties in general with their studies according to the Spanish language. But this does not necessarily mean or reflect the student's level of competence in the course or in the language. And no teacher mark the two difficult options. Students' performance show the appropriateness of the course for heritage Spanish speakers, as teachers' perceptions show that 75%, which is 13 of the teachers, located their level of their students between superior and standard. 25%, which is 5 of those teachers, expressed that average. And 20%, which is 4 of those teachers, expressed that their students' performance was inferior. 2 of them affirmed that such inferior perception was driven by the fact that some students didn't have a positive attitude towards learning the language. Others said that the performance level of heritage Spanish speakers is variable as other types of students in their classrooms. 60% of the teachers that had potentially lower level of linguistic competence felt intimidated by those heritage Spanish speakers who show an advanced level. Another teacher admitted feeling less intimidated after gaining some confidence throughout the years being a teacher. About the fourth question, teacher agreed to be in favor of the creation of a Spanish course that addressed heritage Spanish speakers' academic needs. 70% of the teachers, which is 14 of them, said that the institutions and the students will be benefited from these type of courses, and 25%, which is 4 of the teachers, disagree with this idea. The results of this study confirms the presence of heritage Spanish speakers in public secondary schools in Worthington School District. The number of students reported in the study does not represent the total of heritage Spanish speakers in the schools. Some of them added notice. And this is because some of them don't have a Spanish last name, and others have registered to French lessons instead, so it is difficult to identify them. Some others have reported to have some scheduling conflict, and others feel some peer pressure. In some of the cases, some students are avoiding these classes due to the lack of confidence in their own language proficiency. It was found also that it's not easy to match the course level with the actual language proficiency of the heritage Spanish speaker, even when the teachers are aware of the student's specific needs. The sociocultural dimension is a complexity added to the classes, as each student brings their own sociocultural background, like their dialectal differences, country's festivities, gastronomy, and the music. Only 40 to 45% of the teachers have time to devote heritage Spanish speaker students in the class activities or outside the classroom. Intimidation is another important aspect. 60% of the participants expressed to feel intimidated by these students as they are non-native Spanish speakers. Teachers don't like to be corrected or judged by their accent. This also might be linked to the years of teaching experiences, but the study showed no correlation between teaching experience and the comfort. 50% of those teachers who felt intimidated had taught for less than 10 years, while the other 50% who had taught for more than 10 years or 10 years felt less intimidated. However, 6 of the participants who had been teaching in these classes for more than 10 years, they still felt intimidated. 70% of participants were in favor of designing a special class for heritage Spanish speakers. This led us to the pedagogical implications. There are different pedagogical implications that go from the need to contextualize the strategies schools implement to target heritage Spanish speakers' specific needs to the social variation. The existence of mixed ability foreign language classes in secondary schools, it is essential to contextualize those different strategies used by these institutions to target these students' specific needs. The literature offers examples and suggestions about improving language teaching and learning in regards of language and language variety that should be used in these classes. Teaching heritage Spanish speakers require an understanding of the linguistic and social implication of bilingualism. Teachers need to go beyond and know more than the standard variety of Spanish. Bilingualism is complex, meaning that there are multiple competences that need to be transferred to those heritage Spanish speakers. The suppression of certain linguistic aspects might be hinder the acquisition of other aspects in the future. Teachers need to help increasing their students' linguistic knowledge, the development of different registers, and advancing their students' dialect instead of trying to replace them for standard forms or preferred forms. Conducted surveys at the beginning of the school year can help identifying students' linguistic profile so that teachers can raise awareness of the diversity of mixed ability classes, which can be an advantage to address their specific needs. Teachers also need to expand their students' linguistic production by explaining how context affect language. In other words, every variety of Spanish heritage speaker used with their friends and families are valid, and that they are encouraged to use it. And those registers that will be more appropriate at schools or at workplace should be reinforced as well. For example, when we talk about an academic register. Dealing with different Spanish makes it difficult to determine if the students' production are erroneous or informal variety. Because code switching and calques are common in foreign language context and not dialectal features, it is advised that teachers model a type of linguistic pattern, especially those that they have studied in classes before, instead of correcting in order to cause confusion or to avoid confusion to those students. Normally, the linguistic features are referring to the verb tense, agreement, and spelling. Mixed ability classes require more energy and creativity on the part of the teachers. There is a need to find a balance on the time that teachers spend going on the language aspects that heritage Spanish speakers already know, while giving the time to monolinguals to process what can be new information for them. A solution can be pairing monolinguals and heritage Spanish speakers on activities where the formers are assisted by the latters. Research on heritage Spanish speakers institution situations is required to continue fulfilling their responsibilities of attending the academic needs of the whole school population. Guys, I hope you have learned a lot from this article and from this video. So now I want you to reply those questions I left there in the forum. So if you have any extra questions, you can ask me during the class or just put it there in the forum. Thank you very much and see you.